President's Distinguished. When he was area governor, his area was President's Distinguished. When he was division governor, his division was
Distinguished.
When he was district governor, his district was
Distinguished.
well, it was distinguished. However, he went on, after being a district governor, to become, within the next year, to campaign and became international director. And then after that, he campaigned to become second vice president. I was there, and it was an amazing thing to watch the people. That was the day before the electronic voting occurred. And I called it Toastmasters on steroids. It was really a crazy sight. Unfortunately, Mike did not win, but he continues to serve as an ordinary Toastmaster if you go to his website. Today, we are, again, as I say, we are very fortunate to have Mike come to District 65, and he did it because he was simply passed. When I went to the International Convention, I talked to other district governors, and I said, I have my deputy come to my leadership breakfast. How did you do that? I asked him. I did have bragging rights. Anyway, with that, I'd like to welcome Mike Rafferty, past International Director, Distinguished Toastmaster, to the lectern.
Thank you, Madam District Governor. I hope everyone in the back can hear me. I've never been much of one to stand behind the lectern. I'm going to be out here moving around, talking to you, doing lots of questions and answers, because what I really want to do is hear from you about what your concerns are. I do want to tell you a little bit in advance, though, before we go to Q&A. And first, I want to hear from a few people why you are in Toastmasters. Now, I'm a little bit in awe of this crowd. There is quite literally about 1,000 years of Toastmasters experience in this room. Think about it, 100 people and average 10 years each. That's 1,000 years of experience in dozens of clubs. The answers are here with you for any challenges you may have, any questions you may have, any inspiration you may need is right here within you. And I want to help you try to find that this morning. But first I want to hear from a few volunteers why you are in Toastmasters. Anyone?
Roger Morehouse, Southern Division Governor, and from Crown City and Florida. I'm in Toastmasters for one reason. Somebody asked me if I wanted to join. I continue in Toastmasters, continue to learn, and continue to help other members learn, as well as, what the opportunity I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Tell us why you're in Toastmasters.
I'm Lillian Marie Knight-Faison. I'm the Central Division Governor. I'm in Toastmasters because I know that it is a wonderful organization. I want to share the skill that we have to express ourselves and find what we are passionate about and share it with others. I love to feel confident. I love to be able to stand up at a moment's notice, to be able to express my feelings and thoughts on issues. But I'm very passionate about this organization because where else can you learn to give gestures, eye contact, speak with conviction about what you believe in, and hope that other people will join your cause. And that's why.
Wonderful. Wonderful. One more volunteer.
My name's Rose O'Keefe. I've been in Life Learners 4323 for 5 years. I'm VP of Ed now. I joined Toastmasters because I had close to zip confidence as a public speaker. And I'm supposed to be a public speaker. Oops. But since I've been in, I am so pleased with the diversity, inclusion, the safe learning space
question now. Why are you here this morning? Okay. Why are you here this morning?
My name is Eva Miller. I am the district secretary, and I'm here because I'm shy. And there's something else to do. But also because I love to be around Toastmasters and people skip me stuff in each other.
Another volunteer. Why are you here this morning?
I drove 2 hours to ask this question. Have you ever met George Marshall, and is he as nice in person as he is online?
Yes, I have.
Okay. For the benefit of all you other people, if you read LinkedIn, you'll get it. It was a joke.
For those who are wondering, George Marshall and I and Keith Ostergaard are only the people who, at least in my view, can talk the most on LinkedIn. And you know, you can't shut a Toastmaster up, but between the three of us, we do a lot of the data analysis and reporting. George Marshall has a great website. Who here has seen the poster that I was giving out last month at the convention? I understand it was brought to the last deck meeting. So if you look at the bottom of that, his website is on there. It's, I don't want to give it from memory because I'll get it wrong, but it's a great website with lots of things. You can, for example, put in a member's name and it'll show you their entire educational history. Back to 2004 for the online records and things like that. He's got some really useful stuff on there. All right. Let me tell you a little bit about how I discovered Toastmasters. I did an MBA program back in 1998 to 2000, Lake Forest Graduate School of Management. It's a small little school in Chicago, but it's well ranked and does very well, and all they do is MBA programs. And in my classes, a couple of the instructors talked about Toastmasters, just briefly. They said, if you're going to be in business management, you have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to get up and put together 2 words and sound like you know what you're talking about. You got to be able to sell your ideas, you got to sell your product, you got to sell your pitch, whatever it is you're doing up there, you've got to be able to convince the crowd of what your message is and why they need to be involved in what you're doing. So I didn't think too much about it at the time. I graduated in June of 2000, and 3 months later, I'm walking into work. It's the Chicago Board of Trade building, and in the lobby, there's a sign on an easel. Toastmasters meeting, 21st floor, noon. Okay, I guess I better go check that out. It doesn't get much easier, right? You just take the elevator to get there. Didn't have to drive anywhere, didn't have to plan it. Just like, okay. So I went to that Toastmasters meeting, and they had a lectern much like this. And one of the speakers there was talking about the jackalope. Now, who knows what a jackalope is? All right. Got the right crowd, it looks like. She's talking about this jackalope. She's got a story. I don't remember the details now. But the part I remember most is at the end of the speech, very near the end of the speech, she reaches out and pulls out this stuffed rabbit with antlers strapped on it. And I just thought that was the cleverest thing. Now, looking back, that was obviously the visual aid speech she was doing. Props. But that just really stuck in my mind. So I came back for another meeting. And another meeting. And I decided to join. I gave my icebreaker speech. And it was too long. Who here has given an icebreaker speech that went too long? It's hard to know when to stop. And 13 years later, I'm still drinking the Kool-Aid and recruiting more people, building clubs, mentoring members. And that's why I got involved in Toastmasters. It's because of that. Now, the skills I learned in Toastmasters turned out to be very useful in my job. About a year later, I had this person who was working for me. We'll call him Mark. And he just wasn't getting the job done. And it was time for his annual review. I really dreaded this meeting. Telling someone who's not quite getting the job done that they need to improve. And as I was working on that and planning it, and trying to figure out what I would say to him, I realized to speech evaluations. Tell him something good, tell him what he needs to work on, and leave him feeling good about it by talking about what he's done well. And I approached that evaluation that way. And it actually went over quite well. He came away from that annual review understanding what he needed to do better, but also feeling good about what he had achieved. And that's when I realized Toastmasters has some real world applicability in your job or wherever it might be. A few years later, I found myself looking for work and doing job interviews. And which part of the Toastmasters program sounds like job interviews? Table topics, yes. What's a job interview? It's just a table topic. What are you good at? What have you done well in the past? What do you bring to the job? What are your skills? What are your shortcomings? Don't you hate that question? What would you change about yourself if you could? Anyone seen some of the questions that Google asks their interviewees? There's some pretty strange questions. For example, one of the questions Google will ask an interviewee is, why is a manhole round?
Because a square one falls through.
Yes. But it's questions like that, things that don't seem job related, but they're things that make you think. And that's what they're trying to get at when they interview. And that's really what table topics is. You have no idea what's going to come up. You go into that interview, you have no idea what they're going to ask. I mean, you've got some general questions, you've got some questions they all ask, but then they always have some new questions, what you just didn't expect. How do you address that? And maybe you do it by talking around the question. By not directly answering the question, but saying, oh, that reminds me of, you can go off in that direction. Now, that may not work so well in a job interview, but it works very well in a lot of other contexts. When things get into touchy issues, for example. So I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for 13 years, and I'm still here in Toastmasters. People ask me why I stay in Toastmasters. And one of the biggest reasons that I stay in Toastmasters is the people. In Toastmasters, you meet people who are here to help you, who have your best interest in mind. People who are going to give you an evaluation that tells you what you can do better, what leaves you feeling good about yourself. And giving evaluations is such an incredible skill. It's not just the speaking, it's the evaluations, it's the table topics, it's the leadership, it's all the elements of the program put together. But I keep coming back to Toastmasters meetings, and especially going to new groups like this, coming out to District 65. It's one of the things I love about being international director. I got to visit the districts, 8 districts throughout the region. And in every one, there were people there I knew, and there were new friends I hadn't met yet. And that's why I stay in Toastmasters, is I keep coming out to these events. The annual convention, it's just a big love fest. It's your best friends that you see year after year. And if it's a new face, it's your new best friend. It really is like that. It's wonderful people. It's networking. It's getting to know people you would never meet any other way. In corporate clubs, we see the same thing. Toastmasters breaks down silos. You've got people in accounts payable, you've got people in sales, you've got people in the warehouse. When would they ever talk normally? Never. In Toastmasters, they're talking. They're breaking down the silos. And companies benefit from that. Same thing in the social world. If we looked at all the people in this room, the only thing you all have in common is Toastmasters and the things that relate to that, like that giving of self to others. A lot of that giving manifests itself through mentoring and coaching. And that is something that is a huge part of Toastmasters. How many of you are in clubs that have an active mentoring program? Show of hands. Good. An active mentoring program is the best way to improve your retention and keep them coming back. Someone who's taking a personal interest in that member's progress. Someone who calls up and says, hey, can I hear you practice your speech? Do you have your next topic even? From what I can see, the #1 problem that speakers have in coming up with their next speech is just the topic. And it's just a matter of talking through that many times. And once they've got the topic, hey, practice it a few times, they're ready to give it It's that mentoring that really helps. And that mentoring applies at every level. From the new member who's being mentored by someone who's maybe only given 5 speeches or has a CC, all the way up to the international president who is mentored by his predecessors. Coaching as well. How many of you have served as a club coach? Good. The club coach program is a great way to keep clubs going. It's a formal program to go out there and help struggling clubs rebuild their membership and become distinguished. And I could spend a whole hour training people on how to be a club coach. But let me just tell you that if you want to really feel success, if you really want to feel like you made a difference in a club coach is the thing to do. When the club coach program was first announced back in 2003, I think it was. Before that, it was the club specialist program. They changed it to the club coach program. I was a division governor, and I visited one of the clubs in my division that I hadn't heard from, Unity Toastmasters. And I went with the Lieutenant Governor of Marketing at the time. There were 2 people at that meeting, both guests. They had an active website. No members showed up that day, that Saturday morning. Just 2 guests, Lieutenant Governor of Marketing and myself. We held a meeting. We showed the guests what Toastmasters was like. And while they did not join on the spot, understandably, we invited them to come back to the next meeting. And we followed up with the club officers, and it turned out that they all had excuses. But this was in September. By the following June, the club was distinguished and had 20 members. And to this day, it is still thriving and growing. We've had 2 area governors come out of that club in the past few years. And that club is a great success, Unity Toastmasters. And that is probably what I feel is one of my biggest accomplishments in Toastmasters at the club level, was saving that club from practically nothing up to that, producing leaders. What's almost as good as coaching clubs, though, is building new clubs. Now, if you're here this afternoon, I'm going to be talking about that in much more detail. Because building new clubs is what brings the Toastmasters experience to more people. And where do we get new clubs? From energetic, enthusiastic, passionate Toastmasters who've been drinking the Kool-Aid, but who really feel that there's value in Toastmasters and they want to bring it to other people. There's a lot of excitement in a new club demo meeting. Who's been to a new club demo meeting? All right, most of you, good. Now, agreed, there are challenges in some clubs. What's really easy is building a new corporate club. You usually get a whole bunch of people in the audience and it often charters on the spot. But you can lose them just as easily too. It's all a matter of support from the company. Community clubs. Let me be a little more specific. Who's been involved in building a community club? Okay, a little less show of hands. And those can be a challenge. Sometimes you start with like 4 people there. And you got to get it all the way up to 20. And that can take months of work. It's a lot of work. How many of you are involved in community clubs with at least 40 members today? A few. I'll tell you what the easiest way of building a new community club is. Grow an existing one and spin off a new club. Because then the members coming in, the guests coming in, can see what a great club is like. Anyway, more about that this afternoon if you're around for that. New club, though, it's a whole lot of excitement. You've got 20 new people. And that means you've got 20 new people giving my favorite speech, their icebreaker. I love hearing icebreakers. Because you get to find out about the person. That's what it's all about, is finding out what that person is about. And that's where you have to keep in mind the what's in it for me rule. When you're talking about Toastmasters to people, do you talk about why we need them? Or do we talk about what they're going to get out of it? Talk to them about improving their communication skills, improving their leadership skills, providing networking, contests. Who loves a contest? Okay.
Okay.
you got to keep in mind that what's in it for me rule. Don't talk about, for example, if you're trying to get someone to step up and be a club officer, don't tell them the club needs you. I mean, tell them that, but don't emphasize it. Like, tell them what they're going to get out of it. Let's say you need a club treasurer, and you think Ken's going to be a good club treasurer, and there's no one else interested. So you go talk to Ken and you say, hey, we need a club treasurer, and here's why you're going to enjoy it and learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot of things being a club treasurer. You're going to be talking to all the members. So you focus on what they're going to learn, what they're going to get out of it when you're doing things like that. One other consideration is, what's your legacy? How many of you have been in Toastmasters for over 10 years here? Good number of you. What's your club going to look like in 5 years? In 10 years? In 20 years? Are they going to look back on 2013-14 as a great year when things really turned around and started getting better? Will the club still be around in 20 years? Think about what you leave the club at the end of the year, at the end of the next year. Is it a little bit better than the year before? Incremental improvement. You were distinguished last year with 5 golds, aim for 6 or 7 this year. You had 7 last year, aim for 8 or 9. Take it to the next level. If you're a 10-point club with 40 members, there is no higher testament to a club's success than starting a new club. There really isn't. Because that means you've got something people want, that people are coming and joining the club for. So what's your legacy in Toastmasters? And you can do that at the individual level, in the club. Leave it better than you found it. And I talk about DCP goals. And there are some people who say we're a little too focused on numbers. No. There are some people in Toastmasters that are too focused on the numbers. But the DCP goals will arise naturally from what a club should be doing. Manual speeches. If you do enough manual speeches, you're going to get CCs and ACs, right? That's all you have to do. And educational award sessions and things like that. But the basic function of the CC, if you got your new members giving manual speeches, working their way through the manual, they're going to get a CC. And that's what's behind those DCP goals. You're going to have members who are becoming better speakers. And that is what it's about. That is why we're here. It's to help the members achieve their goals of becoming a better speaker. In the DCP, we look for 4 CCs. And there are some people who simply try to get those 4 CCs at whatever cost. There are people, let's be honest, who will get up and speak, and they'll just ramble. They'll do a table topic for 5 minutes and take credit for that in their manual. And they won't even read the evaluation, and then the next meeting they'll get up and do the same thing again. There's another speech. Toastmasters is a self-paced, self-improvement program. There is no pass or fail. We can't tell that person, you failed, do it over. We can privately encourage them to do it differently. We could even say you might want to consider doing that over again. Sure. But the ethics and integrity in our values, respect, integrity, service, and ethics, comes into play here in the DCP. Because behind those DCP goals are members meeting their goals. 6/10 of the DCP is about educational awards. 2/10 is about new members. Any club that's doing well should be adding new members. We get a lot of turnover. People leave, usually due to no fault of our own. They get married, they go back to school, they move, they change jobs. There's all sorts of reasons people leave Toastmasters. We don't have a lot of control over that. We do have people who leave Toastmasters because the club isn't helping them. And we've got clubs like that. And that's where the club coach comes in. And the area governor visits and that sort of thing. And good officer training is the key alliance. to help those clubs. But the DCP measurements are a measure of members meeting their goals. And let's keep that in mind. When people talk about the DCP, it's not just 5 goals. It's members meeting their goals behind that. And it's the same thing at the district level as well. We may say we want the district to retain clubs and build new clubs, extending the network. We may say the district wants distinguished clubs, but as I say, the DCP is about members meeting their goals, isn't it? So think about what your club's going to look like in 10 or 20 years. Think long term. You know, there are companies in Japan that have 100-year plans. They plan that far ahead. 100 years. Generations. What's your club going to be looking like in 5 years? What's it going to look like next June? Plan ahead. But the key to this, everything I've said, is you. It's that 1,000 years of experience that we've got here in this room. How can we harness that 1,000 years of experience, that 1,000 years of passion, that love for Toastmasters, go out there and help these clubs do better, to help those members meet their goals? This is what your involvement in Toastmasters is all about. It's what's in it for you, and what's in it for the member. 1,000 years of passion, 1,000 years of experience. District 65 has the ability to be distinguished consistently, year after year, through members meeting their goals. And I want to see that. I want to see members meeting their goals. And this leads up to distinguished clubs and distinguished districts. And this is what I charge you with today, is to go out there, help your club be distinguished, help the district be distinguished. Now, I understand a few people have questions for me, and I'd like to spend a little time on that if you have questions for me. Yes, sir.
How do you get more people using the competent leadership manual? That's been a challenge in some of our clubs. How do you motivate people to stay there?
Great question. The SEAL manual is relatively new. It's only 7 years old. But yet we have a lot of clubs that still haven't managed to take that up very well. And I think that we can do a lot better with that. How do we do it? The first way is by example. Are you doing a SEAL manual when you get up and perform a role at the meeting? Now, there's more roles in the meeting than you can fill a SEAL manual with. Not every role is going to be something you can put a SEAL manual credit put towards a SEAL manual credit. Let's set an example. How many of you have a SEAL manual somewhere at home? Okay, almost everyone. All right. Let's set an example. And the nice thing about setting an example is whoever you ask to evaluate your SEAL role is going to learn something. They're going to look at that. They're going to learn something along the way. They're going to say, "What? I haven't seen that manual before." And then they'll be interested in doing so. Your VP of Education can also get involved by making sure that people are assigned SEAL roles as needed, by tracking progress and by having a progress chart that shows how they're doing and saying, okay, you need